All right, you loyal listeners. Welcome to another episode of Agency Intelligence Podcast, giving that real agency intelligence and not the artificial that they try to make you believe out there. Today, we're here back with a special one, what we'd like to call a celebration of life. I'm being joined here by Roger Sitkins, and you're thinking to yourself, wow, Roger, yes, just having his presence alone means a lot to us here in this industry. But we are doing a celebration of life for Walt, also Walter Gdowski, as if I said his last name correctly, who was the CEO and owner of the Rough Notes company. And so really want to have a little talk with him. What I'd like to do here is I'd like to talk about Roger. Roger, I believe you were a big friend of his. You were someone, when I spoke to people in the industry about him, they mentioned you a lot. Is that right?
Yeah. I got to meet Walt. One of my private clients was the Agency of the Year, Chris McVicker, the Flanders Group. And Chris chartered a plane and took all of his employees, had about 25 people then, to Indianapolis for the event. And he said, look, you're our coach. We want you to come along. So that was the first time I ever met Walt in person. And whether it's just because we're both Polish, I'm not sure why, and ex-football players, but we just hit it off and created a long-term, multi-decades long friendship, and just shared a lot of fun, did a lot of business together, and he had a real impact on my life.
Wow. So what I'm going to do here, loyal listeners, I want to read a little bit about Walter. There's a lot of you who are new to the industry. You probably read Rough Notes. You've seen it laying on a table somewhere at your agency, but you're not familiar with Walt was. I didn't really know him that well either till about 3 years ago. Part of an organization. We went there to we were in Indianapolis at an event, actually at Chris Paradiso's mastermind.
Yep.
And one of the things, we went over there for a couple hours and got to meet Walt. And it was really funny. I walked away having no idea the impact that gentleman had on the insurance industry.
Yeah.
I mean, from basic ISO standards to Accord forms to things that are way outside of the publishing and journalism industry, things you do every day you don't realize probably came from him. So I'd really like to just take a couple moments just to familiarize yourself. Walter was born in August 3rd of 1946 out of Trenton, New Jersey. He passed away on May 12th of 2025 at the age of 78 after a long illness. Some of his key things and things that we want to talk about. He started his professional journey as an insurance world, joining Rough Notes in 1978 as a regional sales representative. Just so you know, these are the notes that I have found after doing my research. So I'm hoping 100% that they are correct, which I think they are. And he wanted to help agents, brokers improve their business operations. He gradually rose through the leadership roles, now national sales manager, vice president of sales and marketing, and finally becoming the president of CEO. He took ownership of the company in January of 1994. Leading a period of growth and re-innovation. Under Walt's leadership, Rough Notes became the forward-looking, redesigned the magazine format, expanded the editorial content, and positioning the publication as a trusted industry resource. I think that's about as true as it could be right there. Absolutely. His vision helped transition the publication in the modern era, including the adoption of full-color photography, professional writers, and a broader editorial reach. Some of his contributions to the insurance industry, which are just numerous, I'll just name here a few. I love this here because I consider myself a champion for the independent agents and the industry advancement. He launching the Rough Notes Community Service Award in 2000, honoring charitable work for agents and brokers. He's supporting industry recognition and awards, including sponsorship of major independent agent achievements, serving as the chair of the Risk and the Insurance Research Academy and a dedicated board member for the Risk and Insurance Education Alliance, which helps with education and professional development within the industry. A couple honors here for him. He had, once again, many. I'm going to pull out a few. Insurance Marketing Communication Association Golden Torch Award. He was the CPCU Society Central Indiana Chapter Excellence Award. And induction into the Insurance Media Association Hall of Fame in 2006. This reflection is an impact of both Rough Notes and the insurance communication more broadly. A couple things here on his personal and human side. Beyond business, Walter was known for his generosity, his mentorship, and his personal warmth. He was a leader who cared deeply about the people he worked with and the communities he served. I've heard that from many, many people. Anybody that worked with him considered themselves lucky and special. He was an avid golfer. He was a licensed pilot, flying famously one of his World War II training planes, which reflected his adventurous spirit and his zest for life. Colleagues describe him as kind, approachable, wickedly funny. I did not know that about him because I didn't know him that long, and genuinely invested in others' success. What's probably the most notable things about him is he's known for modernizing Rough Notes and how he blended the tradition with innovation, and just also his support for the independent insurance agent through education, mentorship, and industry service. So anything you maybe want to add, Roger, that maybe comes off the top of your head?
Well, I think you've covered it all, but maybe some of the more personal things about him. And I'll do it with respect to my dear friend and his late. But, you said how people maybe read the Rough Notes magazine, you've seen it laying around. Well, I did as a kid because my parents owned an insurance agency, and I would see that magazine all over the place. And my mother was still alive when I started writing in Rough Notes, and she got a big kick out of the fact that her son was one of the contributors there. We had our monthly article in there. As Walt started flying, he was flying in the bi-wing Stearman.
Okay.
And I said, Walt, that's just a really old plane. I said, where did you learn to fly? He said, no, I learned in that. And I said, shouldn't you've got a regular license first? He said, yeah, but I just kind of want to do things differently. Well, for whatever reason, and we were at one of my client events, actually on Captive Island here in Florida. And I said, well, from now on, we're going to change your name. We're going to call you Snoopy Gdowski. So that was a nickname that stuck with him for a long time. We've golfed together several times with friends, came down here and golfed, went to a place I have in Georgia to golf. And I was actually with him when he got a hole in one.
Oh, wow.
He had 4 or 5 with. We were actually with Roger Lawanga, who was a retired CEO of Auto Owners, a great friend of ours. So there were just so many things he did. He loved life. He was a gregarious guy. He was a big guy.
Uh-huh. He was.
But he took the magazine that was pretty archaic, I think, and you mentioned how he went to color. But I think one of the biggest things he did is he kept the core in the educational part of it, and the court cases, all of the things that really help you on the technical side. But then you realize the industry still, it's about independent agents. And he always felt strongly about that. So when he started doing the agency of the month and agency of the year, it really elevated everybody, because as you know, when you're out there and you see, well, someone else is doing this, it must be good, it must work. And I know that I think it was the meeting when Chris McVicker got it, there were 5 of our clients that had done well enough where they executed. My job's the easy part. I can coach them and say, here's how you ought to do this. Someone has to execute it. But we had all of us there together and taking pictures with Walt, and it was just really, really fun. One of the really great times we had together was when Tommy Huval from the Huval companies in Louisiana, they eventually sold to Brown and Brown, and Tommy retired as a senior vice president there about a year and a half ago. But Tommy had a big party, and it was a low country boil. So it was primarily the crawfish and corn, and shrimp, and whatever you want. But Walt and I were in line together, hanging out, and we got up there, and they had sausage. But to us, it was kielbasa. So I said, Walt, we've got kielbasa. This is great, And we just always laughed together, had a lot of fun. But again, the things he did, you mentioned the Community Service Award. He was so adamant about that. And if you look at some of the things that people did to help their community, because that's one of the beauties of the independent agency side that I see, is that the vast majority of successful agencies, they really realize they're blessed. I tell people all the time, what a great career, what a great job, what a great company you're in. That I really think we should get on our knees every morning and thank the big guy upstairs, say, thank God for for this opportunity.
You're darn right about that.
Just see so many people that kept giving back, where they were just changing the world. It was unbelievable. One of them, Mark Rollins, who started going to Nicaragua on mission trips. Mark got that award, and then Mark told me about it. In fact, at one of our private client meetings, he got on stage and talked about it. I said, "Okay, we're going." And so we wound up taking. We did a little over, I think it was 12 or 13 different trips to Nicaragua. And Walt was so into that, he couldn't personally go. But Elizabeth Boone, who was a longtime writer for Rough Notes, she actually went on, I think, 4 of the trips with us and wrote articles. So in all of the areas where he gave the community
Wow.
service awards, it created an awareness that could help other people. So, the money's one thing, and that's great, but what do you really do with it? And Walt really believed that.
Hmm.
Um, you laughed about him where he really was a great leader and everything. But I will say this: there were many times when Walt would finally say to people in his company, "It's my business, and this is
Yeah.
the way we're going to do it." And that's a leader at some point has to say, "This is the way we're going to do it." And he was really good about that, but he really cared about his people.
Hmm.
Really cared. Even when he was sick and, we were praying for him and it didn't look too good, but he was still there. I called him, I guess 3 or 4 days before he died, and I didn't really realize how bad he was. And I left a voicemail, and doggone it, 10 minutes later, he called me back. He was in the hospital. "Hey, how are you?" I said, "How are you?"
Right.
Oh, yeah, that's the type of guy he was. It was about other people.
So would you say that from what you know of his leadership, giving a little hint on that, would you say that he led with authority or more influence? If you had to guess there.
I'm gonna laugh. It depended on the situation.
That makes
He
sense.
might have he might have led with influence and they had to go to authority.
Yeah. Don't we all sometimes, you
Yeah.
know?
But
Yeah.
he was very fortunate that his, son-in-law, or excuse me, brother-in-law, Sam Berman, was a chief operating officer for 30 years and is still there. He's running the company now, and he's really a good guy. But, he said, "Hey, it's Walt's company." And
Mhm.
then his other brother-in-law ran all of the supplies and shipping and everything. So he had his brother-in-laws there from his 2 sisters. So it was truly family, and if you were there as an employee, you were treated as family. Don't screw up like you
Right.
should in any family.
Yeah.
But he was really good about that. You you know, um, Leadership overall, he was in it for the long run. In fact, one of the things that you said you were there, did you see the museum?
Oh gosh, yes, yes. He's
So
very proud of that.
every form that's ever been done was there. In fact, at one point, Rough Notes was a furniture manufacturer. What they did is they designed and built and sold desks that were set up so that service reps could have all of their different forms they needed. Of course, Rough Notes forms in the exact right place. It was an efficiency play, you
Yeah,
know.
I remember sitting at we were all eating dinner at the end of it, and he was standing up telling about everything that he's done. And I remember reaching over to one of my friends and saying, "This guy literally did everything, or at least he thinks he did." I remember thinking that because it was amazing the things that he would bring up. I'm like, oh my gosh, I had no idea that he was involved in that.
Well, and it's interesting because the magazine, I shouldn't know this, but it's basically about almost 150 years old.
Hmm.
And so he didn't do all of that.
Oh, I know. He
Yeah.
couldn't have. He
But
couldn't
it's
have.
interesting if people listening or watching don't know that the original founder was a guy by the name of Henry Martin, Dr. Henry Martin. And he had a bunch of insurance little offices. And he would go between them by horse and buggy. And while he was going, he would put some rough notes about, well, this guy's doing this and it really works well. Let's try that in our other office. So it was sharing, which today, that the getting together in roundtables, one of the most powerful learning we have, especially if you're in the right room. The saying, if you're the
Mhm.
smartest person in the room, go find a new room.
That's
But
true.
when you get the right people in the room, the collective genius is really exciting. So that was how it all started. And then Walt eventually bought the company from the family of Dr. Mark. I'm not sure how many generations it was, but he knew right away. He said, "I've got to change this." When I first met Walt, they still had these huge printing presses in their, they had a huge building. At one point, they had 48,000 square feet downtown Indianapolis, And then Walt got there and started changing things, saying we're going to electronic publishing and all of these
Right.
things. And he had like 30 some printers that worked for him. And he said, look, I'll retrain you guys to new jobs, but I'm not going to have printing anymore. And
Wow.
all but one of the printers said, well, you can't ever do that. You'll always need us. And the one gentleman who said, no, I'm going to find something else, continued to work with Walt until he retired.
Wow.
Gentleman retired. So it
Wow.
was just really cool to see him always doing that, you know.
Roger, you're kind of known for the coach, right? For helping agencies be innovative. And I imagine, whenever I talk to people and they mention you, they'll say, something that Roger told me or something like that. How about Walt? What was it, something that really stuck out? Maybe something you do on a daily basis or advice he gave you that really made you, that you still carry forward today. Do you have anything off the top of your head?
Well, golf related, yes. Uh,
Okay.
no, you know what it was? It was, we had a good enough, really close friendship that we talked about just about everything, spectrum of things. The thing that I would take from that, if I had to summarize it, and it's a great question, um, and I believe this today, maybe even more than ever. It all comes down to relationships.
Mm, mm.
Walt traveled a lot just because of relationships. When Chris McVicker passed away, I was asked to speak at it, and I got there, and Walt was there. I didn't even know he was coming. He just flew in for the day, and you would see that with him. He would go visit people, so he was such a relationship guy. Um, and in today's AI world, as you know, a lot of people think it's going away. In fact, one of
Right.
my recent Rough Notes articles talks about the fact that in the past, the best agencies had the best knowledge. And if you're going to get knowledge, you're going to get it through Rough Notes.
Mhm.
And so you had a lot of knowledge workers. And what's happening now is a lot of the knowledge can be done by going click. That's it. We got it. Now,
True.
a lot of it's Walt's, Rough Notes information. And I'm involved, I think he knows, in a company with Chris McVicker and Chris Paradiso and Mick Hunt called the Intelligent Agent. And so we work with Rough Notes on that. But what's really happening is because knowledge is becoming what everybody has, it's almost table stakes now. And you've
Mhm.
got to transform your company, your knowledge workers into relationship builders, relationship managers. And Walt believed that before it was cool.
Yeah.
He just
Yeah.
he believed in relationships. It was
And for all you loyal listeners, maybe you do and you don't know, here on the Agency Intelligence Podcast Network, we have what's called Front Cover, which is the podcast. And what was really great is I host that, have for the last 2 years. So please check that out if you didn't know about it. But um, this isn't in stone, but the feeling I kind of got was Christopher Cook, who's one of their main editorial writers. Him and I were talking about it and about maybe creating this, and it came back around like a year later. And what was amazing is I really never knew Walt, but I also got the feeling that he was one of the people, being one of probably the most eldest there, not the, but most, he was the one who was pushing for it. Because I think he really felt as if this was another, going from the printing press to actually digital printing or publishing and all that. He saw this as another way to get us from the paper into the digital stream. And I can't always say it happened all the time, but I probably have 4 or 5 emails where he would just reach out to me and say, Jason, I want you to know I listened to this podcast. You did a fantastic job. And he would always give me a little note of something I said, and then he would go on. And I mean, it just made you feel special. It made you feel like, wow, he took the time. And it's something that teaches you. It's something that makes you realize that when you do that to other people, that feeling you're giving them, which is probably one of the most greatest things that you can do. And it was just a really, really special thing. It really, truly was.
a couple things on that. When he was getting ready to do the podcast with you, he asked me, I said, God, don't do it whatever you do. Don't do it with Jason. No, I'm kidding. I said, from what I know and working with him, absolutely do it. But the thing you reminded me Walt was great at writing notes, and he had the little executive stationery with his name on it. And
Mhm.
every once, he would just send me, "Hey, loved your article," or he would send me an advanced copy of an article,
Yes.
something new he found. He was just always doing that.
Mhm.
God, this just popped in my mind. I was kidding around with him. He was at one of our events, and he was talking about the fact that his wife Sharon, who unfortunately predeceased him, but he said, "Oh, she wants to really remodel." I don't want to remodel, and I said, "Well, how are the cabinets you've got now?" He said, "Oh, in the kitchen, by the way." "Oh, they're not that good." He said, "But I really don't want to throw them away." I said, "Well, you got to throw them away. Well, send them to me. I'll use them." 2 weeks later, we get a
No.
truck show up at my office. It's got all of these old cabinets.
He sent them to you.
Totally forgot about that. So I got to throw him away in Fort Myers, Florida versus Indianapolis. Of course, he's laughing like crazy. Um, and so I paid him back. He was a huge New York Yankees fan.
Okay, didn't know
So
that.
when the Yankees Stadium was rebuilt, they tore it down. You could buy the states. You could buy seats. Okay,
Mhm.
seats. So I bought a pair of seats, just for him and had them shipped to him as kind of a payback. He really
Right. Not a whole thing of cabinets, but that makes sense. Wow. Let me ask you this a little bit on the human side. What did Walt love talking about when insurance wasn't the topic?
um, he loved talking about flying because that was really something. He had 3 vintage aircraft. He had the
Oh, wow.
Stearman, and then he had I think it's God, I never get the name right. It was one of the early planes that would flying off in World War II, flying off carriers. You see in the movies with the sliding canopy. He had that, and then he had I think it was called a T-26 trainer. It was a side-by-side plane. But so he was really into that, and that was something socially he really enjoyed. He would fly into these various, literally fly-ins, weekend events, and people would want to go for plane rides. He'd take them. He and his
Oh,
wife
wow.
Sharon, and even afterwards, Walt did this on a beautiful day. They'd go over, get the plane, and they would go up to watch the sunset from the plane. A Stearman,
Oh,
open.
wow. That's
So
great.
that was really something he enjoyed a lot. He was not a big car guy. He had a big SUV and stuff, but he was never a really big car guy. But boy, he loved his planes.
Roger, if Walt was sitting here and he was listening to this conversation, what would you want him to hear?
Oh, wow, you're gonna get me teary-eyed here. Um, he knew this, but I would want to tell him face to face I loved him. I loved him as a brother. We had so much fun. The Polish, and I would send him Polish food at almost every holiday. My sisters always appreciated that, and he would send steaks on the week on like big holidays. But I loved him. I loved him as somebody who I was fortunate enough to get to know, who I was fortunate enough to really have a great relationship with. Somebody that as much fun as we always had together, I always learned from him, and I miss him. I mean, I really miss him because we talked all the time.
Hmm, that's great. That's fantastic. Well, Roger, at closing up, any last minute things that you want other people to know about him? Maybe any lessons intentionally, unintentionally that the industry should never forget about Walt?
I was thinking about that ahead of time. I was hoping you'd ask me that question. Um, Walt didn't leave behind a magazine, okay, from a business perspective.
Mhm.
He left behind a standard. I thought he
Mm,
created a very, very high standard. And for those of us that care deeply about this industry, that may be his biggest gift because all of the information that they have, like Vertifor, the risk surveys, et cetera, and Zywave used a bunch of it. It's all Walt stuff. Now, did
mhm.
he write it all? No, but he made sure that it was ongoing for the industry. And so to me, yeah, he left behind a magazine that I love, and we still write in it.
Mhm.
And I do articles in it now. We switch back and forth. Um, but he raised the bar. I think that's an easy way to say it. Some people go through life just floating along, and some people always want to raise the bar. And so to me, Walt set a very high standard.
Wow. That's great. That's great. Well, all you loyal listeners, I hope you got the little bit and know a little bit more about him. I want you to know that these questions that I prepared, I did not give to Roger. I wanted them to come straight from Roger and his heart and his brain. And Roger, obviously, he will be missed. It is a standard. And it's the reason why this industry gets better, because when someone like him creates that standard, it's up for people like me, you, and others to raise the bar and just keep doing it. It's the bar that he was given, and he did his job. I say a lot times, I say it us all the time, actually, that this industry, I've met people I never thought that I'd meet. I've went places I never thought I'd go, and I've given my family the life that I never thought that I could give them. And it's people like Walt who's laid that road for people like me to continue to repave and do my best, so that it maybe in 20, 30, 40 years, there's young people who are still coming into this industry that get that same feeling. I think that's the whole point of this whole thing. So, Roger, greatly appreciated. Thank you very much. We hope that your own health gets better and continues to. You're a legacy and an absolute staple in this industry. You've got great perpetuation there, obviously, with Brent Kelly, one of my true best insurance friends. I absolutely think the world of him. So thank you very much for your time, Roger. I greatly appreciate it.
Really a pleasure to be able to talk about my friend.
Yeah, well, and I bet you he greatly appreciates it. So thank you very much.
Welcome.
This has been Jason Cass with Agency Intelligence Podcast. Tell me your thoughts and tell me your ideas, and I'm going to tell the world what you have to say. This has been Jason Cass. He's Roger Sitkins, and this is in memorial of Walt. Thank you.